for all of us who would love to preserve consciousness in a digital medium, or back up our memories, our personality, if that's even possible, the biggest limitation I see is the current hardware that we have to do that. It's just amazing that we have this capacity, and we're on the cusp of something really special when it comes to brain machine interaction, brain computer interaction. And then taking that data to then code to these 4 directional movements, and building a model to predict, or to translate really, if we're seeing this particular EEG activity, okay, that's imagining moving the right hand. If we see this particular EEG activity, that's imagining moving the left hand.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, the work that you're doing in general in the finance sector. And I think before we move on from AI and onto your work with Roots, I think maybe a last question, something that really impressed me was your brain-computer interface, which you created. Maybe could you explain and expand on that a little bit for our audience?
Yeah. Well, I've always been fascinated with brain-computer interfaces. So the project that I undertook there was to see whether I could control a drone in a 4-directional sense with an EEG headset. So with just 16 electrodes, wanted to see if I could do 4-directional movement. And the idea was to imagine motor movement. So just using motor imagery, basically imagining and coding that to imagining moving 4 limbs. So left hand, left foot, right foot. And those 4 imagined motor movements would then steer in one of these 4 directions. So I spent some time just sitting there imagining moving one of the 4 limbs, and then taking that data to then code to these 4 directional movements, and building a model to predict, or to translate really, if we're seeing this particular EEG activity, okay, that's imagining moving the right hand. If we see this particular EEG activity, that's imagining moving the left hand. Because there's research that suggests that there's a similar activation pattern for actually moving the left hand versus imagining moving the left hand, or, this sort of thing. And actually too, to be a little bit more specific too, I actually used imagining moving the tongue and the mouth as the forward motion, because our brain has more mapping for the mouth than it does for the feet. So if you look at, it's called like the homunculus map of the mind. Very cool to take a look at this. If you look at it, you'll see the mouth and the tongue, a huge portion of the motor cortex devoted there, and the hands too. And then the rest of the body, like the torso and the legs, very little. The feet have a little bit more. So I try to take advantage of that, amount of the motor cortex devoted to each, to the body proportionally, to try to do this mapping. So that was a fun project. Now, the downside to EEGs are that, I only had 16 electrodes to work with, and, we have 100 billion neurons in the brain. EEGs are really just looking at a population of activation of neurons. So, and you're working with, electrical conductance off the surface of the scalp. So it's the skull gets in the way a little bit. It would be wonderful to have a number of micro electrode arrays implanted in the brain. I know that's what Elon's company is trying to do, right? Or has done. But yeah, it's so frustrating because, for all of us out there who would love to see a way to, I'm going deep into futurism here, but for all of us who would love to preserve consciousness in a digital medium, or, back up our memories, our personality, if that's even possible, The biggest limitation I see is the current hardware that we have to do that. Now we've seen really cool stuff where I don't remember where this, I think this was done maybe in China. I'm not sure, but they were able to take mental imagery of a person within a fMRI machine, and then use some of these image to image models that have been developed to then translate that mental imagery from the fMRI, that fMRI image reading, into what they were mentally imagining, right? That has huge implications, I think. You could use that technology to record someone's dreams, maybe, or, record someone's memories. As we develop this technology, obviously it's in its infancy, and I really would love to. I wish I could cite the specific paper that's pulled from, but it's just amazing that we have this capacity, and we're on the cusp of something really special when it comes to brain machine interaction, brain computer interaction.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and at the risk of inflating your ego, I think what you're doing is really cool. And on that note, I mean, you're also, alongside all the AI stuff we've talked about, also have a project called Roots. Could you maybe, just for our listeners who might not be familiar with Roots, tell us what that's all about?
Yeah, so Roots is what's called a real estate investment trust, and effectively it's an investment group that's purchasing a number of properties, rental properties. Right now it's just in Atlanta in the US, but they're purchasing a number of investment properties that are being rented out to people, and they're very affordable too, relative to the area. And the idea is that not only are the investors getting returns by investing into this real estate investment trust, but also the renters themselves, a portion of their rent is being invested on their behalf as a rebate, if they take care of the property and they pay their rent on time and they're good neighbors. So, you get a portion of your rent back invested for you. So the renters also get to be investors too, which has never been done before. And it's a win-win, because for the property owners, the people who are owning these properties within the fund, a huge problem is that if you're used to the traditional model of renting, and I don't know how it is in the UK, but there's a huge amount of money that typically has to be spent per renter on repairs to the property after they leave. That's why a lot of renters just assume they're never going to see their security deposit, because that has to go towards repairing the damage. And unfortunately, that's the way it is all over the place. But by incentivizing them to take care of the property, by having a portion of their rent go into an investment fund for them, so they're actually making money while they're renting, I think that's really powerful. And a lot of people don't have anything invested. They may have a little bit of a savings, but they don't have anything invested. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't. So people who go through this Roots process and they rent for a few years, they start to see they have a little nest egg that gets invested for them. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea to kind of have every stakeholder, i.e. every person who has some kind of interest in the place, actually get something out of it. It's similar to an idea we have in the UK of cooperatives. Like we have a supermarket called the Co-op, where every employee instantly by joining gets a very small percentage of the company, kind of like a wide partnership.
Love that.
So from your reaction, you haven't heard of it. So how did you come up with this idea of kind of having everyone get involved?
Well, I didn't come up with the idea, to be transparent. I am a partial owner of this company, and not just of the investment, the REIT, but also of the larger company that owns Roots. So that also includes the software itself that allows property owners to set this sort of up, because we're expanding to outside of Atlanta and giving people who own these, single family homes or multifamily homes the ability to do this as well. But I didn't come up with the idea. It was some of the people I work with who've been in the real estate game for a number of years who really came up with this. Yeah.
Please welcome Cameron Hamilton.
He's a serial startup founder, an AI expert, data scientist, but most impressively, he's a successful contestant on Love is Blind.
What does it mean to you to take a leap of faith?
Throughout life, we are faced with scenarios where we must take a leap of faith. In the context of a relationship, that means being vulnerable. You risk being rejected by that other person, and that's scary.
Is love truly blind? Your company, Alliance AI,
For all of us who would love to preserve consciousness in a digital medium or back up our memories, our personality, if that's even possible.
So what do you think about OpenAI, for example, and how they're dealing with questions of objectivity?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that short clip of our episode with Cameron Hamilton. If you want to see the full episode where we get into AI, real estate, and Love is Blind, you can click right here. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep getting guests like these and keep bringing you guys interesting content. Thanks so much. See you next time.